today, what we are going to do is we are going to continue with what we did on Monday, right? So we'll create a new app, then we will go through that process. But this time I'm not going to slow down because we've already done that on Monday. Then now we can get all our stuffs in their right folders and we can continue with the development. So to do that, let's all go to our repository or like our folder in which we are working. I'm going to create a new folder. Sorry, I'm creating a new folder for the upload. So I'll just say day one. Sorry. All right. So okay. So the name of the app I'm about to create is GeoPortal. Right. So I'll create the name of the app. I will say GeoPortal. All right. So that's the mother folder of the application. Then in that application, let's all create 3 folders, one for CSS, one for JavaScript, and one for images, if there is any. So we'll say JS, then one for images, IMG. Right. So I'll drag this onto my Sublime test. Right. So this is what I'm going to work in. So I have my folders in there. Right. And I'm going to create a file, an index.html file in the GeoPortal or the app folder. So I'll just right click on the app folder and create a new file. If you are using VS Code, you can also do same. Yeah. So I'm going to create my index.html. So that's going to be our app. And the main motive of this session, please kindly mute your microphone. I'm getting some feedback from one of us. Yes, sir. The main motive of this session is to try and get something built, an application built. Then now I will show you how to publish such application or deploy the application on GitHub for free, right? So that's what we are doing. That's the main motive. So we'll use this procedure or this process to learn bits and pieces of everything that you need to know in Leaflet. Then the final product will now deploy that on GitHub. Then is up. Your assignment will be the templates that we will be sharing. So you have to make sure that you get all these functionalities in that template. Then you can share that, you deploy that template and share that with us. So if I'm going through anything and you don't understand, kindly note put your questions down. Right after my presentation, I'll open the floor and you can just put your question across and I'll be glad to answer all the questions. All right. So let's continue. So now that we've created our index.html, as any other application, what we are going to do is to open our HTML stack. Right. So since I'm using Sublime, it automatically creates the structure for me. So I'm going to give it a title, map. Right. Then what I will do here is to create a div. And that div.
Please, can you increase the font?
Okay, sorry. Please hope it's clear. It's okay. It's okay now.
Yes, thanks.
Okay. You're welcome. So I'm going to give my div an ID and I'll say map. So that's the ID of that container, right? So now I have my structure for the map. So I have my head, I have my body, and inside the body I have my map div, the map div, and we are now going to reference. Since we are going to use leaflets, we have to reference the libraries in the HTML. So let's go to the official website of Leaflets to get that. So you go to leafletjs.com, then you can go to tutorials, then you come to quick start guide, Leaflet quick start guide. Yeah. So just like what we did on Monday, I'm going to copy this link. This is a CDN link of the Leaflet CSS. So I'll copy this and come in the head. Then I'll just paste that, right? Then I'll come back to this and I will copy the JavaScript, the leaflets.js. I'll copy that also, right? And I would put that in the body, at the bottom of the body. Okay. All right. So if you were part of yesterday's, Monday's session, you realize that we did everything in the HTML, right? This time around, I want us to organize our codes, right? So we'll put all our JavaScript in a JavaScript file and all our CSS in a CSS file, and what's supposed to come in the HTML will come in there, right? So that's what we are going to do. So to do that, we will now create a new file. So let's create a file. Let's create a file within the CSS. So I'll right click on the CSS folder, create a new file, and I'll save it as map.css, right? So I'll say map.css. So all the CSS stuff will be writing for the application will be put in the map.css. Then I'll come to the JavaScript or the JS. I right click on it and I create another file in here and I save it as map.js. So all our JavaScripts for our map will be put in this file, right? Okay, so let me just wait for 30 seconds for those of us who are yet to complete this process to do so. All right, so let's continue. So now that we've created our map.css and our map.js, we have to reference these files in our application, right? So to do that, I'll reference my CSS first, and I'll bring the CSS right after the our leaflet.css. So I'll open a link, and I know by now we all know how to reference our CSS. We're taught by I think Eugene when we were going through our HTML classes or lessons. So I'll reference my CSS, and the CSS file is in what is in the CSS folder. So I'll start from CSS, right, / then the name of the file is map.css, right? So we've referenced our CSS file here. The same way, I'll come down here and reference right after the leaflets. I'll come down here. Let me just give a space here. So I'll just say script, right? I'll change the tag. I'll say SRC. Then I'll reference it to the JavaScript, which is the folder is JS, then / map.js. So we have our map.js also added to our map. So there's one other library that we'll be using, that's jQuery. So you can go to Google. And search for jQuery CDN. So the first option, you can use either the minified or the uncompressed version. I'm using the uncompressed. So I'll copy this, right? Then I'll minimize this and come here. And I make sure, so this will come after the leaflet. Someone will ask, why am I keeping this here? So this is our JavaScript, the file that is going to hold all our JavaScripts, right? And all the scripts that we'll be writing will be dependent on these, the ones up here. So if I bring this one up here and I write in any code, I initialize the map there, I'm going to get an error because the browser reads the codes from top to bottom, right? So it has to load this first, load this that one, then we can get to where our script is. So by the time it gets here, all the functions that are in that library, the library has been loaded. So any function we call in any of these files will work. Yeah, so that's the main reason why we are keeping this at the bottom. All right. So we have our jQuery also added. All right. Let me just pause for 30 seconds for those of us who are yet to get to this stage to do so. All right. So now that we've added our jQuery, we've added our leaflet, we've referenced our leaflet library. We've also referenced our map.js. That's where we are going to put all our JavaScript for the application. That's what the JavaScript we are going to write here. So we want to initialize the map. So to initialize the map, let's go back to our leaflet. Sorry, I'll go back to my leaflet page, right? So where we copied the CDN links for it. We've already done this, right? We've already added our div. So the next thing we have to do, so we have to give this particular div a height. So I'll just copy this and come to my CSS file and add this. So what I'm doing here is that there is an ID called map, right? We have to give this map a height. Without the height, the map cannot initialize, right? So I'll come to the height and I'll change the height to, let's make it 95 BH. Yeah, let's make it 95 GH. VH, yeah. All right. Then let's go back to our, then this script will help us initialize the map, right? So it says var l.map. Then this map you see in here is supposed to be the ID of your div, the container in which the map is going to load in. I used map. If maybe you are using, let's say, map ID or map container, so this side of the code should change to your ID of the that particular div, right? So I'll just copy this, come to my JavaScript file, and I'll add that here, right? We did all these on Monday. So I wouldn't waste time on this one. Then I've already initialized the map. I want to add a base map to our map. So I'll just copy this OpenStreetMap tile layer to it. So I'll just declare a variable called OSM, right? Then I will equate it to this particular tile layer, right? So at this point, when I save all the files, so I'm saving my JS, I'm saving my map.css, and I'm saving this. Now, let me just go in there and run the map, the HTML in my, what do you call it? In my browser. Okay, so we have our map initialized. So at this point, we should see something like this on our screens. All right, so I want to center my map. Let me come to my map.js. I want to, so over here, it's a good practice to add comments. Okay, so let me just add comment to this. Initialize map. Then I'll say over here, I'll say add, what's that? All right, so I've commented my code just for anyone who picked this file up to know what each of these lines are doing, right? So as I made mention earlier, I want to change the set view. I want to set it to Ghana. So whichever country you are, you can set the view to your country. Yeah, feel free. But for the purpose of my presentation and the data that we'll be using, I want to set it to Ghana since all the data sets will be falling in Ghana. So I'll say 7.0 negative. What did I? Okay, let me set it to negative 1.09. Okay, then I'll give it a zoom layer of 5. I think that's what we used on Monday. Yeah. So I'll just come here again and refresh the page. This time around, I should see Ghana. So I have Ghana here. Maybe I will increase the zoom level to maybe 7, and let's see if it's going to be fine. We want to get, okay, I think this is better. All right, so at this point, each and every one of you should be able to get something like this. So I'll just pause for some few seconds for you to initialize your map. Yeah, we've just started our application. So this was what we did. I think the first part of what we did on Monday, right? So we could quickly resume to our work. So in our Java map.javascript, this time around we want to add. Last week we added our skill bar or our skill to the map, right? So today we want to since we are building upon what we did, but so I'm just going to quickly add our skill. So I'll say L, right? Dot control. Sorry. Dot skill. Sorry. Dot skill. All right. Then I'll say let's add this to the map. All right. Close that. So this line of code, we are adding skill to map. All right. So I'll just save this and come to our map window and just run. So you can see our skill uh, is being placed at the bottom left. You can change the position to either bottom right or top right or top left, whichever location you want it to put. You want to place that. You can do that by using the option. So you can pass an option here, right, to do that. I think I explained that last week, so I wouldn't go over. Yeah. All right. So now that we've added our skill, right, we want to come back here. We want to add about four of, let's say, let's add 3 Google Map base maps. Then we'll add one other additional topo map to our base map to get 5 base maps, which the user can choose to select which of the base maps that he or she will be interested, right? So let me go to our friend here, Google, and I'll search for um, Google base map. Leaflet. Let's see. Okay, let me open this guy here. Okay, I'm not that. So Google base map. Oh, I'm actually not frozen. Let me search, but I think Google map to leaflet. This should be able to. This will be much clearer. Okay, let's see. All right, yeah. So I think this is what I saw some time ago. Yeah. So you can just search Google Maps to leaflets and you click on the first option, it's Stack Overflow. You have the link to I think 3 of the Google base maps. So what I will do here is to copy this first one, the streets. So I will need the streets, right? We will need the streets. So I'll add the streets here. Let's come back to our code. I will add the hybrid. All right. Oh, I will add the satellite, right? Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we have 4. One last one. I wouldn't select the last base map from this, but let me just explain how this endpoint or this star layer works. So the link for each of them is the same, right? What's the difference between these base maps is you can see that we have SHS. So if you want the satellites, you pass S. Let me show you. So this is the satellites. So over here you pass S, right? If you want the hybrid, you pass SH. If you want the streets, you pass M. And if you want the terrain, you pass P. So it's the same link, but you pass different parameters to it to get the right base maps, right? Yeah. So all these links are the same. The only difference is this side, the layer. So the LYRS. Yeah, that's where it differs from all the other layers, right? So we've added at least 3. Okay, let's just add the last one to it. Then I think we should have enough base maps for our user, right? So we have this. So this the Google Streets. We have the Google hybrid. We have the Google Satellites. and we have the Google terrain. So let me declare these as variables. And I showed you the other time how to multi-select if you are using Sublime. Use control and select multiple lines. If you are going to type in the same stuff in the multiple lines, you can do that using control, select control, then you click on the places that you want to select. So I'll just type in var for these lines. So I have var, so I've declared all these, right? So I will just comment. I want to comment this our first base map to check if these guys are going to work, right? So I will just give this to the next line and I'll just comment that. Then I'll come maybe like let's add this to add to map. Right. I'm just adding the satellite instead. I like satellite images. So when I refresh this, I'm supposed to see a satellite image. Bingo. So that's our satellite image we have here. Yeah. All right. So that's our satellite image from Google. So you can also test for the other ones, right? So you can just test the other ones by adding add to map to each of them. You can load one base map at a time, right? Yeah. So I will just comment this also and just reactivate our defaults. I want our default base map to be the OSM. All right. So at this point, I'm going to pause for a minute for us to catch up. Then we continue. All right. All right. So you have a minute to do that. Let's wait.
A question.
Okay.
If we decide to initiate add to map to all of the base map, what happens?
So if you add, when you add to base map to all the base map, all
Yes.
of them are going to load. But what you are going to see will be the last one, this particular one. So the last one, because it's going to load this, it loads the first one, and it will load this on top of this one. Then it will load the third one. Yeah, so it's going to stack them.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Can we continue? All right. So we want to create let's add a marker to it. Let's add a marker at least so we have a layer and a base map. Then we can get our layer control to the map. Okay, I'm getting a feedback. Someone is still typing, so let me just hold on. All right, so let's continue. Let's continue. I'll just give a space. All right, so I'll just let's add a marker. Just so the marker is going to represent our layers that we are about to add, right? After we'll just take it off. Yeah, just for I'm using that for presentation sake. So to add a layer, I'll declare a variable called marker, right? I think we did this on Monday, right? Then we'll use the L dot marker. Oh, sorry. All right, then we'll pass the coordinates. I'll use 7, the same as our set view, -1, 1, 0. Right. Then I'll add that to the map. Okay. So let's check if this runs. Okay, so we have our marker added. At least we have a base map and a layer being added, right? All right. So what? So our main objective for this session is to one get, like, the first objective is to get our layer control so that we have multiple layers. We can switch in between layers, yeah, and continue with the other stuffs. So we are going to add our layer control. Let's go back to our guide, our leaflet guide. So we will go to documentation, right? Right. Then we will go to controls. So under controls, you come to layers, right? So it's going to show you how to add your layers to add a layer control to the map. So there's an example. So we have here our base layers. It's a variable declared for the base layers and a variable declared to put our layers, right? And to add our layer control to the map, this is the syntax, right? So what we are going to do here is to just copy these guys, this word that we need to add our layer control. So I'll just copy these guys. Then I'll come to our code. Then I'll just add, and I'll add the comments to this. So I'll add these maps, right? Then I'll add this as our layers. So over here, we are going to add our base maps. So all these base maps, we will add it to this object, right, or this dictionary, right? So we have the variable called layer, base layers here. We will add our first style is what, OSM, right? So in the variable is OSM. So I just did that. Give this. So that's the variable, and the name that you want to show in the panel. So I'll say OSM, the same as OSM, but this time it's capital letters. Then the other layer, so I'll replicate this. Oh, sorry. I placed that at the wrong side. Let me just copy this and revert back. Supposed to put that here, right? All right. I think even OSM is already here. So I'll just clear this. Let's keep the open street map. Then you, at the end of every line, you add a comma, right? So you're adding all the other base maps to it. So I'll just replicate. We have 5 base maps. So up to 5. Then we'll take each of them. So we take the street, Google Street View. So add this, then I'll give it a name. So Google Street. Oh. I'll go for the next one. That is our Google Hybrid. Oh. So add that one here and give it a name. Google. Last one is going to be a satellite image. So that's our Google satellite image. So I'll say then we'll add our last image. That's our Google terrain. Right. We'll add that here. Then we'll say Google terrain. All right. So we've added our base maps here. Here, I'll just comment this out. Okay, so I'll just add our layer. That's our marker here, right? So this marker, Now this time around, so the layers, I have them just the marker, and I'm just adding the marker. It's already here, so I'll just keep it as it is. Then when I come to the last line, we'll now append this object. That's our base, the base layers that we've stacked in our objects or our dictionary here. Then we'll add, so we are going to add additional layers to this layer, but I want to test if this layer control works, right? So this layer control, we are having the base layers and we're having what's the overlay. So that's what we have here. And after we are adding them to the map. So at this point, you can save your JavaScript and go back to your map and load. You should see something like this in your screens or in your map. If you are not seeing anything like this, it means you didn't do something right. So you can see over here, I can uncheck the marker and check it. And I can also change the base maps. You can see that. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to pause for another minute for us to get to this point, right? Then we can continue. Okay. All right. So let's continue. Right. I wanted to show something. All right. So with this layer control, the layer control has some options here. So these are the options that you can pass through the function, right? So let's say you want the layer. So this particular one, I'll just talk about this. The rest you can just read the description. Let's say, by default, it has been collapsed into this box. Maybe you want the layers to show like this on load. You can do that by passing the collapse. So you have this collapse here. So the collapse option defaultly is true. So meaning the layer control will collapse. But if you set it to false, it's not going to collapse. So let me just come to this. Let's come to our code editor. Then I'm going to pass this option to it, and I'll say collapse, collapsed, right? Then I'll say collapsed is equals to false, right? So when I do this and I come back to my screen and I run this, you can see that by default, this layer control will open. So depending on your preference, you can decide to get it like this, or you can decide to collapse it on load. Yeah. So for the purpose of my presentation, I'll just keep it like this. You can also keep it collapsed. It's up to you. Yeah. All right. So this will lead us to our next objective, that is to get our layers to the map, right? And I shared a certain zip file with you in the Telegram page, and I hope you've all downloaded that. Yeah, so we are going to convert these zip files to GeoJSON. So we are going to learn how to load GeoJSON on the map. Then, if there is time, we'll also learn how to load the WMS on the map. Yeah, then we can touch base on the other thing. Okay, before we move on to the adding of the layers, right? Let's touch base on the print tool, right? Let's add a control on the map, somewhere on the map on the left side, to print your map, like get full extent of your map. Yeah. So to do that, let's go to our browser let's go to our browser, right? I want us to get all our tools in place before the layers can come in. So let's go to our browser and search for Leaflet browser print. I hope it's correct. Leaflet browser. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. So click on this link, the first link, when you search for it, and I think it's the repository for that plugin. So we want to use this plugin. We want to use the plugin. And one advice I will always give my colleagues who are trying to get used to these libraries, try as much as possible to go through the documentation. Whoever developed the plugin has a documentation guiding that plugin, right? So if you want to use the plugin, you get the right stuff, then you should be good to go, right? So we will download this plugin. So just click here. If you are good with Git, you can clone it in your terminal. But for the purpose of this session, let's just download it. So I'll click on download. Then it will download the library for me. I'll just navigate to where it is and unzip the file. So let me just unzip this here. Where's the folder? Okay, so that's it. So when you enter the unzipped folder, right? Let's go to SLC. All right, we have a couple of them. Let's go back. Let's go to just, yeah. So when you enter the unzipped folder, we have this two here. Any of these works. This is a compressed version of this one, right? So you can choose any of them. I'm going to use the compressed version. So all that you need to do is to copy this library, this file, just copy it, then come into your app. So come into your app, the app folder you created, then drop this file. Since it's a JavaScript, we are going to drop it in our JavaScript folder, our JS folder. So here's it. Right. So where we created our map.js, put that library there. So the leaflet browser.sprint.main.js, we are going to put that there. All right. Then we will reference it in our application. So that's all that you need to do. Get this, and let's go to the bottom. Our browser is misbehaving. All right. So over here, let me touch base there. So over here, if you want to initialize the print to, by default, you can use this to initialize the print, right? So this is what you are going to use to initialize it. There are other options here which you can read or read through on how to implement them. Maybe if you want to use any custom print actions, you can do that here. But we are going to use the basic feature, which is what we are interested in. So let's come back to our code. We'll go to our HTML. Then this time around, we are going to reference our Leaflet browser. Since it's a JS, we'll put it here, right? So it's going to come after the jQuery. So open a script tag, and we add our SLC. Then the link is JS, that's the JS folder /. Then let me go to that folder and just copy the name. Right, it's long. Just copy the name. So js/leaflet.browser.print.main.js. So now we have our leaflet browser print referenced in our application. So the next thing that we have to do is to get our control, the leaflet browser print control initialized on the map. So to do that, we'll put that in our JavaScript file. That's where we are putting all our JavaScript, right? Yeah, let me just add a comment. This our layer control to map. I just added a comment to it. So the next thing we are going to add is add print control map. The print control will just specify leaflet. So that whoever gets hold of this code will know that okay, so there's the library we used, so leaflet browser print. So we'll come back to our documentation and just we'll copy this particular line of code. This is all that we need. Then I'll add this. And let me explain this. So this is the function that is causing that is going to get the browser the print control on the map, and it is taking this parameter. So over here, we know we are passing an option here, and the option we are saying that the position should be top left. So on the map, it should be on the top left of the map. The title we are not interested, so I'll just take it off. Right. So your code should look like this. Then you can save it and run your index.html. That's your map. Okay. What's happened? All right. I think we didn't save our HTML. So let me just save the HTML. After we added the browser, I didn't save it. Let's see. All right. So we have our browser the print control here. So we can print in landscape, portrait, auto. So let's test that. So when I click on print, that's my landscape. Sorry, my portrait. Just the landscape. Okay. Then the custom. Interested in just this part. All right. I think it works. All right. So we have our print control also added to the map. What else are we missing? Have we added all our controls? No. So there's one control that we are leaving out. That's our mouse over um, um, the mouse over tool. So in our first section, that's on Monday, we learned how to get this mouse over to the map, right? And this time around, I think let's make our map cover the whole page. Let me just close this tab. I can see some white space in here. So let me go back to my CSS and increase the height to maybe 97. And I think 97 should cover the whole screen. Okay, yeah. So I think this is fine. So the next thing we are going to do is to add that control here, even though we've done that, but we'll just do that again. So I'll come back to our coach. Then I'll say mouse move coordinates. Okay, so we have our mouse move coordinates. And to do that, first of all, we have to come to our HTML, right? And in the map, this time around, we want to add the thing to the map, right? So we'll come into the map div, right? We'll come into the map div. Then what we will do is to get another div in here. So we'll say div, and the div is, we'll give it an ID, and I'll give it an ID coordinate, right? So that's our coordinates. So inside the map div, I've added a div here. All right. Are we all here? All right. So let's continue. So now that we've added this div here, all right, we will go back. So just keep this in mind that we have a certain container here called div. But let's position this div on the map so that we can get this div at the bottom, right? So we'll do a little CSS here. Okay, all right. So let me just wait. Let me pause for 30 seconds for you to get. Let me go back so that those of us who are just typing will do so. I hope we got this part, right? So let me just move. Let's wait for another 20 seconds for you to type. All right. So let's continue. So we are saying that we've added a div to this map. Inside the map, that's where we want to keep our coordinates, right? So we will give it a style. So in order to do that, you come here, we will say, sorry, that ID, that is coordinate, right? We'll give it a position. So let's give it a position, and that position should be absolute, right? Then we will say, since we want it to be in the middle, we are going to give it a left of 40% so that it will just get it in the middle way. So let's say left 40%. After running, if it's not at the center, you can still adjust it, right? Then let's give it a background. I'll say white, which is F. All right. Then let's give it a Z index because when we do this, when you leave it this way, the map has a Z index of I think 999. So we have to get a Z index which is higher so that this layer will rather this div will come on top of the map. So whatever you are going to put in that div will show on the map, right? So I'll just give this 5 lines. I think this four should be okay. All right. So just get this. Right. Let me just give it a height, just for me to know whether I'll give it a height of 6 pixels. Then let's run. Okay. So I'll go to my inspector to check where this is. Okay, I'm not seeing that here, so I'll have to save it. I think after getting this here, I didn't save it, so let me just run. All right. So I have my coordinates here. All right. So it says my coordinate is showing somewhere in the middle. So I'll just give it a bottom 0. Sorry. So I'm using this to debugging to get the right thing done. Then after we can copy that. Okay. All right. So let me check our coordinates. So okay, we have it here. Then all right. Let me give it a color which will be more visible. All right. So we know. Let's just go add bottom 0 to it to our CSS. Let's add bottom 0 to our CSS. Right. Then now let's go to our JS. Okay. Let's go to our JS. Then we are now going to add the JavaScript to it. So mouse move as on Monday we did. So it's map. That's our map container. Not the initializer. That's the map initializer. The let me show you. So I'm referring to this variable, this map, right? So we are saying that map, right? Dot map dots on, right? Then we will say on mouse move. So this is a JavaScript event. Then we will say function. Usually this, right? And the function argument is e. Let's add the body. Yeah. Sorry. So over here, I'll use the jQuery selector and I'll say, I'm calling that ID, the container. So that's our coordinates, right? Then we will say to HTML. So we want to get that. Okay, even before that, let me just comment this. Even before that, let's print E to see the contents of E. So console.log. Let's print E in our console and let's see if that works. If that's worked, then we can do. So let me come to my console, refresh this. Okay, so you can see as I move, it prints. So that's the event. So this is what we are after, the lat long, right? So this is what we are after. So we enter the object, we come to lat long, and we get the lat and the long. Right, so that's what we're after. So I'll just uncomment this. Now that our event works, I'll just take this off. Then inside our HTML, I'll just use this symbol. So when you check on your keyboard, right under the escape key, the button there's this quotation mark which is slanted or italicized. I think anyone who knows the name can put that in the chat for me. All right. So we are going to use that. So I'll say lat, right? Then I will just bring this. Then I'll call our events. That's our E. Okay. Then we will enter into the event. Then we'll get the long lat. Then under the long lat, we need only the lat. Right? Then I come here and I put a comma. Then so over here, all that we are doing here is to get the lat from this. So let me come here and show you. So you can see when you enter the event, we have this lat long. So we've entered here. So we are saying that lat long dot lat. So this is what we are printing. So we are getting the lat for this. Now we are going to replicate the same thing for the long. So that's what we are doing. So over here, we are saying that long. Let's get this string here. Then we will append the value, that's events, then lat long dot long, right? So I think we are good. We should be good. We should be good. All right. So let's run this and see how it goes. Okay, so I can see our thing hiding here. Okay. Let me just get that. All right, so I think it was the height we used. So let's come to our CSS and just take off the height, right? Let's take it off. Let's take off the height. I think we should be good now. All right, so you can see that as we hover, we have our coordinates changing, right? So you can see we have about so many decimal places. It makes reading it much more difficult. So we'll just keep it to 2 decimal places or 3 decimal places. Yeah. So in JavaScript, we can just use, where is it? So you can just use this and sorry. So this, you can say dot to fix, right? JavaScript, you can use to fix. Then we'll say 3. So 3 means that to fix usually works on a float. So we are saying that this particular float here, the value coming here, right? We want it to run it to the 3 decimal places. So we just replicate this for the longitude. So I'll just add this to it. Now you can save it. Now when you hover, you can see we have our 3 decimal places. Now let me add a padding to it so that the background, the text will just be in the middle with some spaces around, right? So I'll just add a padding to, let's go to the CSS. I'll just add a padding. I know by now we all know what a padding is. So I'll say padding, just give it a padding, let's say 3 pixels. If 3 pixels isn't enough, we can just change it. Okay, I think this is better. It's better than before. Let me just close this and see. This is much better. So with this, you can style it anyhow you want, right? So now we have our map tools. We have the zoom tool. We have our print tool. We have our scale. We have our mouse over. We have our layer control with the multiple base maps, right? Then the next thing or the last thing to do today is to add our data to it, right? So we are going to get our shapefiles. So for the purpose of the demonstration, I selected 3 shapefiles. We have so I selected 1 line feature, a point feature, and a polygon feature. So the zip file I sent a certain zip file. So when you go to the platform, you see that there. All right. So to do that, first of all, we have to convert our shapefiles to GeoJSON, right? So to do that, I have this platform that's usually I go there to convert my GeoJSON. You can go to mapshaper.org. Yeah, mapshaper.org. As you can see on my screen, mapshaper.org. All right, so when you go to this platform, all that you see is this screen, and you have to navigate to the location of your files, right? So I'll just navigate. First of all, if you have the zip file I shared, you should have yeah, I think it's region, the rail lines, and the health facilities, right? So that's what we have in there. So I'll just go to my location where I have these shape files. Okay, come to data sets. Then I come to, so the first layer I'll add is the region of Ghana. I think that's what I shared. So you select everything here, then you click on open. So it will just select the files that it needs here, right? Then you can now click on import. So when you click on import, it's just plot the map here. Then all that you are interested here is to, if you want to simplify the map, you can simplify the map using this tool. Maybe you can look at that later. Maybe after the session, you can just play around it. So you can just come to your exports tool, right? Then the format we are interested here is what? GeoJSON. So just select the GeoJSON and export. So we have our region exported, right? The next, I'll just refresh the page and select our next feature. That is our railway. So I'll go back and I'll come to my railway in Ghana and I'll select all. Then I'll open. Oh, all right. Then I'll say import. So these are railway. All right. Then the same procedure, I will export that to GeoJSON, not TopoJSON, GeoJSON. All right. Then you just click on export. All right. I'll refresh the page. Then select our, okay, select our last feature, that is our health facilities. So I just go in there and select all, open. Then I'll say import. So these are all our health facilities here. Then I'll click on export. Then we do same thing. So now that we have our files exported, let me go to my download folder and get these files, right? So I'll go to my download folder. So I have these files, right? So this is our data that we've converted to GeoJSON, right? So to do that, we want to copy this to our app, right? So I'll come to my app folder. Where is it? Okay, so here's it. Then inside this app folder, now I'll create another folder called data, right? So this is where I'll keep all my GeoJSON files. So I'll say data, right? Then inside this data, I'll just copy all the 3 files that I converted. And I'm going to open this file for you to look at and see the contents of these files, right? All right. So in order for us to load this file, let me just open one of the files so that we look at how the GeoJSON structure looks like. So I'll just open this. So this is how it looks like. So we have all the features in there with their coordinates and the properties appended to it. So you can see each of the line has a property. So you have the region, you have the region code. All right. So these are the properties. Right. So it's the same for all of them. All right. So now that we have this in our folder, in order for us to be able to get this data on our JS and load, we are going to change the format from JSON to what? JS. So we change it from JSON to JS. So change all the data extension to JS instead of JSON. Okay. And it's fast since it's 8:26. All right, so let me hurry up. So we have our data in here. So all our data has been converted to JS instead of the JSON that it came with. So in order to add this, let's open the first file. So that's the JS. So you can see the closing and the ending parentheses. So over here, I'll declare a variable called. So right before the first curly bracket, sorry, the curly bracket, right? Right before the curly brackets, you just the layer is region. So I'll declare a variable called region. So var region then equals to the whole of that, right? Then I'll just save that, right? Some people will just copy all these and bring that in their JavaScript file, which makes your code more detailed. And I don't subscribe to that, right? So you can just choose this way. So we'll do that for all the other three files. So this is our health facility. I'll declare a variable called health facility, right? Then I'll save it and close it. I'll close this. It's left to the last one. That's the real lines, railway. I'll just open this, then save railway. All right, equals to that. So this is all. Now we've prepared our data for us to show, right? So now let's come to our JavaScript. Can I zoom out? Okay. So when you come to our JavaScript, right, we are now coming to add our layers. Right? Maybe we can add our layers somewhere here. Let's add, because we'll be appending these layers to the overlays, right? So I'll just add, I'll get this here. Or maybe, all right, let me just put it up here. So we'll just load all our layers here. All right. So I'll just say add GeoJSON layers. Okay. All right. So we are going to add the GeoJSON layer. So what we will do is to visit our guide. That's our documentation. All right. So let's go back here. Right. Then there is this menu here, GeoJSON. Just click on it, and it takes you to this space. So it shows you how to load a GeoJSON file, right? So it says to load a GeoJSON, there's a function called l.geojson. Then you add your data. Then, if possible, you can add your style, and if possible, you can add a pop-up to it. Yeah, but all that we are interested in this session is to just add the data. We don't want to add anything to it, so we just call the raw function, right? So we'll say, let's come here, and we'll say var our first layer, that is our region, right? Right. So we'll say region layer. Then over here we'll say l dot what's GeoJSON. Then into bracket we'll bring. Okay, so before we even do this, sorry, I jumped a step. Before we even do this, we have to reference our data in our HTML. So the data that we brought here, this data, all the three data sets, we have to reference them here. So we'll come here on top of our script because we'll be calling them. So we'll say script. Oh, sorry. Say src. And this time we are calling the data from what? Sorry, from the data folder. So data slash. Then we have 16 underscore region .js. That's the JS or the data. So I'll just replicate it for the other two data sets. Right. So this is going to be health facilities. Then the last one will be railway. Sorry, it's rail line. Sorry. If you get the spelling wrong, you are going to get an error. So kindly check these things. You make sure all the names. So I'm just verifying whether everything is correct here. All right, so everything is correct here. Then I can save it now. We can come back to our JavaScript. That's our map.js. So we are saying we are going to load all our GeoJSON layers here. So we create a variable called region layer. Then we'll say l.geojson. That is a function, that leaflet function that's going to help us load our data. So all that we are going to do is to pass that variable in the, so we are passing, if we want to load the region. So when you come to the region, if you remember, we created a variable here called was region. So this is the region. This variable is what we are going to call in here. So we are saying that now we want to load that data. So the data, the variable holding the data is called was region. Then we will say now we want you to add this to the map. Right. So for our, we don't need this. I'll just comment this. Okay, let me just leave it. When it's time for us to take it off, I'll just take it off. So now let's go to our map. So you have l.geojson, then into brackets our region. Then we are adding it to the map. So you should come with the default style. Let's see. All right. So we have our data loaded here. So you can see our region data has been loaded successfully. Right. Let's do that. This is the same for the other 3 layers. Then I think we can bring today's session to an end. Today we've done, I think, an hour and a half. So 1 hour, 34 minutes. I think we should have. And I'll add the 3 other layers. So I'm replicating it for the other layers. So we have health. Sorry, health. So here say health facility. Let me use health sites. So you can give it any name that you want to. And this, I will say, this should be railway layer. Sorry, railway layer. Then let's go to this just for us to be sure of what we place here. So it's what health facility. So that's the variable. So I'm copying this, then I'll just load that here, right? Then I'll save it. I'll come to the row line. Then let me just close this. Then load the row line. Okay, so the rail line, I did railway, then I'll just load the railway here, right? So when I save this and I run pick up, I'm supposed to see all the 3 layers loaded. So you can see we have our points. That's our health sites. We have our the region there, and the row lines are just here. I think it's here. So that's our row line. This line you see here is our real line. Okay, so that's one line. Okay, let me just comment these guys for us to see the real line. At least we can see the region and we can see the health site. Let me comment this. When I run it, okay, so that's our real line, right? So we end today's session at this point. Then, God willing, on Monday we will continue with this project. So we are building up. So now on Monday we are going to learn how to style the layers. Then when we are done, right? When you are done, we will learn how to get our WMS. You know, I gave you a certain TIFF file on the platform. So if you don't have that, you can check on the previous messages. I sent a certain TIFF file that we loaded in our Geo server. So all that we learned in the Geo server, we are going to apply that here. So the layers that we publish in the Geo server, we are going to call them in our application. So if you've not done that, take advantage of the days in between our next session to watch the previous videos to get these data sets published in your Geo server, so that when we come on Monday, you wouldn't leave anyone behind. Well, thank you very much. Let me just uncomment my script.
Question.
Thank you. Okay.
In the div container coordinates in the map CSS, I tried to play around with the left parameter, but I discovered each time I change it from 40 to something above or below, it doesn't show on the map.
It doesn't show on the map.
Yeah.
Really?
Say, for example, I change it to 50 or 30.
Okay, let's try something else. Let me make it 50. Let's see. So that's it. 50 is showing. Okay. So you can see that it has shifted to the right. So it's pushing it to the right.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe you can check maybe the way you check the syntax. Make sure the first one is separated by this, where each line should end with a semicolon.
Okay. I think it's working now.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Please, any other question before we end today's session? Okay, let me go to our chats if maybe there is some question there. Okay. So we've done an hour and 40 minutes. And if there is questions, you can ask. Other than that, I will add today's session. I will end today's session. Then if you have any further questions, you can just hit me up. Yeah, either on the page on GitHub or in my DM. If it's an issue, I will advise you to go to GitHub, create an issue, so that when I solve it and anyone encounter a similar issue, I can just point the person to that feed, so that I wouldn't be repeating myself over and over again. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much for your time this evening. Let's keep practicing, as I say always, and let's try. And hit me up if you encounter any obstacle, all right, in your practice. All right. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.